Be that person who just always works, regardless of who's looking at you. Do it when no one's watching. That's like the traits that you want as a Special Forces soldier. You don't want someone who just performs when everyone's watching. It's like you want that person that performs when no one's watching. By default, that's the person that you're going to end up being, is someone that just performs.
What's the selection process like?
It's the hardest selection process in the whole world. Our Special Forces selection is the one that all the Special Forces around the world base themselves off. It lasts 6 months. Hills, jungle, surveillance and reconnaissance, escape and evasion. I remember getting to the end of the hills phase and I'd ripped a load of muscles in the top of my foot, so I couldn't lift my foot up at the time. So I was like dragging my foot around the whole of this endurance march. You think that's hard, and then you get out to the jungle and it's a whole different kettle of fish. Whilst I was in, I went over to Germany and lived in the Alps for 2 years and trained to be a mountain guide. And that led to climbing Everest. And I finally got up to the summit. There was no one on the route. It's like a crazy moment in life where I'm this only dude on Mount Everest and literally the highest man in the world in that moment.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers Interviews, and today we're doing a part 2 with Jay Morton. It's been over 4 years since the first episode, and we talk tons of different things, from climbing Everest and the death zone to some of his early military career and how he managed to get through certain stages of training, the lessons he learned along the way, and the character that he developed. It's really worth taking out a pen and a pad, taking some notes on this one, because I really do think this can help change your life. Today's episode, as always, was brought to you by some of our amazing sponsors, who I'll talk about a little bit later on in the video. And guys, if you're not already, please help support the channel by becoming a channel member or just subscribing down below and hitting that notification bell. And if you want to see this a day before anybody else, go down to the Spotify link down below and you can get free access to a 24-hour early release. And also for all our channel members over at Patreon, you can get early access, an extended cut of this interview, and much more with the behind the scenes content. Link down below. It'll cost you a coffee a month, but it helps support the channel. Let's dive into this amazing episode with Jay Morton. We did this 4 or 5 years ago now, and we've been wanting to do it again for a while, but you travel a ton. Like how come you've been so busy?
Mainly kind of travel for work. So working in the outdoor industry. This few years been super busy. Like we've been out to Kenya, Kyrgyzstan. But yeah, previous to that, guiding on kind of the bigger mountains, Everest and Aconcagua, and some of the big 7 mountains, 7 summits. But yeah, it's just been a busy time, I think, since we last saw each other.
Yeah, it's been a while.
5 years ago. Lots changed.
A lot's changed, yeah. Man, yeah. So this is what I was going to do. So because we've done the interview before, but it was 5 years ago, and it was Joe, my good friend, who interviewed you last time, I think backstory is still interesting, especially to the audience today. So introduce yourself and what you do, I guess, just to start off with.
I'm Jay Morton. I'm an ex-Special Forces soldier. Now I work in the mountains or in the outdoor industry. So I run a company called Concept Expeditions. We mainly specialize in putting together bespoke adventure itineraries, one-on-one guiding and instruction. And we run a number of group trips around the world for ultimately climbing mountains and getting out into the outdoors.
The interesting thing is, I think when you see your socials and all the stuff that you do, to hear you from up north and like your background is like a little bit of a left field, you know, it's a little bit different than what you'd expect. So like, to an American audience, how would you describe where you grew up? Like, what's that like?
Grew up in a town called Preston in Lancashire. It's in the northwest of England. It's mainly a working class town, so there's not much industry or business up there. The northwest of England was where we used to store munitions in the Second World War, because it's the most cloudiest grey place in the whole of England. So yeah, childhood was just a normal childhood. I had 2 parents, both worked. Mother was a primary school teacher, father was an engineer, and yeah, just grew up like any other kid, played sport, played rugby league. And then kind kind of didn't really fit into the school system, or didn't feel comfortable in the school system, like being in a classroom and being forced to learn things that as a 15-year-old kid you have zero interest in. Probably didn't really entertain me or tick my boxes as a young kid. So yeah, I think the military was something that I always kind of looked to and was never fascinated with it, but I was definitely drawn to it. In my younger days, I always wanted to be a fireman. So I think as a young boy, there was always like a fascination or a draw to those jobs that require like a certain level of risk. And yeah, like towards the back end, you'd see these adverts pop up on TV, the Royal Marine ones that 99.9% of people need not apply, which thank God that wasn't true. Otherwise, I'd have known in the Royal Marines. But look, it was masculine. It was, you saw this guy on TV and he's popping out of like a river or a lake or this bit of water with a weapon. And I think as a 15-year-old boy that didn't enjoy school, that to me like called out to me. That kind of adventure, that danger, that level of risk, and also doing it as part of a team with other people that are interested in doing it. So yeah, I left school, went to college, played sport, dropped out of college before the first year, found myself working in warehouse jobs, and I worked for a company that's like similar to DHL, where you just sort the parcels out that were being delivered all over the UK. And then walked out of that, found a job in a warehouse making double glazing windows, and then walked out of that, and then walked into another one. Yeah, I mean, I think if I didn't go in the military, like life would have been completely different. I was young, I was pretty reckless, would embark on risky kind of behaviors and hung around with the wrong people sometimes, and life could have ended up in a different path completely. But I left and joined the military in 19 and joined the paras, and that kind of shaped my life into who I am today and what I do.
How come you had that theme of walking out on stuff, like up until you got there? What was the thing that like you was like, okay, this is me, like I know I want to be here?
Yeah, I think 15, 16, 17-year-old boy lacked discipline, lacked structure, lacked purpose, lacked a belonging. And all those jobs that I walked into, I don't think you're self-aware enough at that age to realize that they're all the things you lack in as a 15, 16, 17-year-old boy. And that comes out in other ways, right? You, I don't know, try and rob a car, or you break a window, or you get into a fight. And for me, it was, I probably drank a lot, probably drank more than, or tried to drink more than my mates. It was like, who could get the most fucked in a night? Like I was quite risky. Do you know what I mean? I liked that behavior of being able to push myself in, whether it be getting into trouble or drinking more than friends would drink.
Or was it hanging around with the rugby lads? Like, was that part of it or no? Because like they've got a bit of a reputation for like that kind of.
Yeah, I mean the rugby lads. That was a better crowd. They were all pretty good lads. It was like an open age group rugby club. We drink a lot, but it was, do crazy stuff. But like that was good fun. I think it was just growing up in a town like Preston and being, I think most people that grew up in that town around the same time as me would probably say that they did exactly the same as what I did. It was, we weren't model students. We were just lads trying to have some fun, and that fun comes out in different ways.
So, once you get into the paras, did you struggle with the discipline? Was you at home with it, with the discipline and like understanding that?
Yeah, I found it pretty easy. I think you soon learn that to take a boy to a soldier, that the discipline part of it is enforced by pain. So, if you don't iron your kit in the certain way that you need to iron it, or, if you don't remember something that you're supposed to remember, or you don't take a bit of kit, or your weapon's dirty, the punishment's pain. So, I don't know, you could argue the point and say that as a 19-year-old boy, if you want to instill discipline on someone, it's like punishment's the easiest thing, right? And I think when you do it in a structured system like the military, where, the outcome that you're angled towards is a soldier, someone who's going to be able to be disciplined and perform under stress and, keep going forward in a firefight if he needs to. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. You join the military with a bunch of guys that are all kind of in it together, and you go through this thing, basic training, and it's, I didn't find it necessarily easy. I found it pretty fucking hard. Like I was never like physically gifted. I was never like a physically fit person at school, or strong. I was never a strong person at school either. So when it came down to like the fitness test that you've got to do to pass to get in the parachute regiment, like I was panicking, thinking that I'd never be able to do it, and I'd never be strong enough or fit enough or even tough enough to be able to get through. And it was actually quite a shock to see that I passed. Like there was a part of me at 19 before we began P Company that, I never thought I'd pass. I thought I'd be the one that fails and ends up going to a lesser regiment.
Yeah, I think in your book you say you could probably, the guy in the recruitment office asked how many pull-ups you could do, and I think you said like 2 or something.
Yeah, I couldn't even do a pull-up. I think that's the thing. I was always fascinated by the gym. Like when I was probably 15 years old, I'd asked my mum to get me one of those Argos weights benches for my bedroom. And so I was always fascinated with fitness. I was always fascinated with lifting weights. You'd look at the magazines and you'd look at, you always wanted that shape of the 6-pack. And so I've always been like focused towards health and fitness, but I was never gifted it. Like I was quite a globular kid. Probably because like I ate sweets and stuff, it's like, it wasn't genetics. I was like globular because, you eat what a kid eats. And like, if you find the biscuit tin, then you eat what's in the biscuit tin. But yeah, I guess from a young age, I guess there was something inside of me that wanted to, I don't know, be better than what I was, or be better than, as far as, as bad as it sounds, like I wanted to be better than other people. I wanted the competition inside of me, wanted to be fitter and stronger, and started running at a young age and lifting weights, but it took a while to move those globular rolls on my body.
What is the fitness testing for paras? Like, what's the basic training?
Yeah, you do a mile and a half. The main thing is a 1.5 mile run to get in. It's a 1.5 mile run that you've got to do in 9 minutes, which is, if you go out there and try and run a 1.5 miles in 9 minutes, it's pretty fast. Like even I can do it now. I could probably fitter now than I was when I went in, but it's a blowout. It's running as fast as you can. Like your lungs are bleeding, like your lungs are hurting. And then I think you've got to do, I want to say 50 press-ups, 50 sit-ups. And that's all it is. You've got to do some other stuff, like, I think there's some jerry cans that you've got to move across, I don't know, 100 meters or something. But it's easy. Like, if you can't do that as a man or a woman, then you've probably got some issues you need to address.
So I think you did two. Your third tour was Afghanistan. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, and is that when it like did you have a sort of understanding before that of like what you was getting into, or like did it hit you at any point? That you were going to war essentially.
Yeah, we went out to Iraq in 2005, which was just a pretty standard 3-month tour. Not much happened. And then it was the back end of that the Americans were going to go over and I won't say invade Afghanistan, but they were going to go over and have some presence in Afghanistan. And we got pulled into this back end of 2005, the Iraq tour. We got pulled into a room, briefed on the situation, and told that there's a potential that we would be the lead battalion that would go out and support the Americans. And then we just found out that we were going to go out in 2006. And I think at the time, like we didn't really know what we're going to get into. Like when we went out there, it was all what's known as like soft posture, where you go out in like you won't put your helmets on, you'll put like a soft hat on, almost to like simulate like a soft posture, like we're not there for war, it's just a present, we're there for presence or whatever. But I mean, that probably lasted like all of 3 weeks, and then the first round started flying, and that was pretty much it for like the whole Afghanistan conflict.
Mentally, was you prepped for that? Like, did you once those rounds started flying, was you like, okay, yeah, I was ready for this? I mean, you would have been what, 21, 22 years old at the time?
20, yeah. Yeah, I turned 21 out there.
Damn.
No, I don't think you are prepared for it. I don't think anyone's prepared for it. I think I was quite a resilient kid. I think I was quite independent, and I think when I didn't struggle as a kid, but I think all part of finding school hard and finding being in a classroom hard builds resilience in you at a young age, whether you like it or not. If you don't like school, you're building resilience because you have to go to school every day. And even growing up in Preston, I walked to school every day. It was a 1.5 mile walk to school, which isn't much, but as a kid doing it 5 times a week, 10 times a week there and back, whether it's like snowing, like raining, sunny, like that all builds resilience in you as a kid. I had a paper round, I had a milk round growing up, worked in a chippy. So yeah, I was even as a 20-year-old, like going through basic training, like you're pretty robust. If you think historically, we would have been 19, we probably would have been going to war at the age of 16. So genetically, we're set up for it as men to go to war at 16. And I don't think there is are you ready for it? It's just a matter of you're in it. And put all the fighting aside and everything, like that 6 months in 2006 was, I've only got good memories when I look back at it. Like the time we had out there, it was like our platoon and the people around me and the stuff that we did, it was like, I wouldn't trade it in for anything else. And, you could argue the fact that it's Afghanistan, it was a different country, and, I wish there was not war in the world. Like, I wish everyone was at peace, but I think the fact of the matter is that we're humans and we've been at war since we walked out of caves, and I think we'll be at war till we take ourselves off this planet. So as a male at the age of 20 years old, it was like normal, and, felt good to be away with like lads and be in a situation that resembled a war.
What was the adjustment like when you got back?
Wasn't too bad, to be fair, after that 2006 tour. I think you're less self-aware of what's going on in your own body. So for me, like we had a decompression phase in Cyprus where we just went and we actually let loose after that 2006 tour, and you had the whole battalion in this camp in Cyprus. And my God, if iPhones existed back then. There was a video circulating around YouTube, I think, a while back. And the whole point of the decompression phase in Cyprus is that you have a period of time before landing back in your home and seeing your family where you can literally just almost decompress, right? It's a little bit of normality. surrounded by the guys. You get to talk about stuff that you've done over there and almost just let the nervous system settle before you go home and pick your kids up or see your parents or whatever it was. And it was carnage, mate. We'd gone down to the beach for like a day of water sports. I think it was only like 2 days or something. And that night we had a barbecue and there was like crates of beer turning up. And like everyone got so lit. And mate, we just had like a massive riot between the whole of like 3-para. It was amazing. I remember at one point, there's like a line and like I can't remember who was on one side. It must have been like 3-para mortars and like one of the companies. In fact, I think it was only our company that went through with some of the mortar lads and some of the support units, not support units, like the heavy machine guns and mortars. And mate, it was like a company was split. People like throwing like cake. People were throwing beer cans. People were throwing beer. And I just remember this moment where I'd gone to get some cake and there's like a tray of like 10 cakes all laid out. And like there'd already been a few beer cans thrown. I just see this beer can come flying over. So I just grabbed like a slice of cake and just like threw it out into the crowd. And fast forward 5 minutes later and like the whole place had erupted. Like I remember the South African guy, Evo's got draped in like a Union flag and he's just like naked, like stood in the middle of the whole thing with like cake and water and beer flying. And the queue outside the med center was like 8 people long of people with like concussions and like splits down their eye where like a beer can had hit them. Yeah, it was wild.
Well, decompression, so it was, I guess, necessary as well, though, to take that moment.
Yeah, definitely. You know, that gets all that anger and frustration or whatever it is that you're carrying around from, you know, seeing your mates and fellow soldiers, you know, being killed on the battlefield. And almost that, you know, your nervous system's pretty heightened when you're in places like Afghanistan. Like if you're going out and getting into scraps every day, it's... your nervous system's heightened a lot. So to just be in an area that's not connected to family, not connected to home life, and just to be able to just relax and decompress, something that's needed.
I've been getting tons of messages asking about my health protocols ever since I did the world's heaviest marathon. The experience took a toll and getting back to optimal health has been an absolute journey. That's where Marek Health have been absolutely essential. Their approach is beyond quick fixes. It's about long-term health and performance. They work with medical professionals to create personalized, evidence-based plans tailored to your needs, using pharmaceutical-grade treatments and cutting-edge diagnosis. Whether it's TRT, peptides, supplements, or like me, getting full health analysis to get you back on track, Marek Health provides everything that you need. And it's not just for athletes. If you're an entrepreneur or businessman like me, you might want that renewed focus, clarity, and energy. That's when Marek Health can get your brain performing at its peak. From comprehensive blood work to customized health plans, Marek gives you the tools to optimize your life. If you're ready to take control of your health, go to marekhealth.com and use code Mulligan for 10% off. The link's down below. I can't recommend them enough. And if you just wanted to get started, I would go and get your blood work done. Go get assessed, find out where they can help you. Use the link down below for 10% off using code Mulligan. I want to talk about our paid partnership with BetterHelp. As you guys are aware, I've always been super open about my mental health, anxiety, depression. For a long time, the way I would deal with that is by burying those emotions, working really hard, running hundreds of miles, and burying those feelings deep down inside. That's why over the last 2 years, I have stuck to online therapy. Weekly online therapy, and it's been absolutely incredible. It was a massive weight off my shoulders. I know I'm not the only person who feels like this, but sometimes it can feel like you are, and you can feel super alone in that anxiety, that depression. And then we have to add the mix of social media in there. For somebody like myself, I'm on social media all the time for work, but so many other people look on there and see these highlight reels of people's lives that's just not true reality. All of these things can be super overwhelming. For a lot of people, we decide to keep it to ourselves. We think we can battle through, we can push through. That's why I turned to online therapy, and you can too with BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a credentialed therapist who can help navigate whatever you're going through. It's an online platform, so you can do your sessions from wherever feels comfortable. And if the first therapist isn't a right fit, you can switch at no extra cost. Most people using BetterHelp are looking for support with anxiety, and 69% report improvement after just 6 weeks. Therapy helped me shift my perspective, process things in a way I couldn't do alone, and actually start feeling lighter. If you've been thinking about therapy, this might be the right sign to give it a go. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Mulligan Brothers for 10% off your first month of therapy. Let BetterHelp rule your anxiety, so anxiety doesn't rule you. Let's get back to the video. I always ask this when I'm speaking to the American guys, how it is working with the Brits. What was it like working with the Americans for the first time?
I've not done much with the Americans. We went over to Bragg to use their training facilities when we were prepping for the Olympics, when the Olympics were in London. And we knew a few of the Delta guys, so they'd like come down to the range, and always like super professional, like really, really cool guys. And we'd bump into them on ops when we were doing some stuff out in Iraq. And yeah, always like mega professional, good dudes, like all the ones that I've met, really professional, really just tier one operators.
Yeah, which were the countries where you're like, they sort of matched that level that you guys were working at? When we're talking about the SF guys, like which were the countries that you were happy to work with because they operated at like a tier one level?
Yeah, I mean, really UK and US. I mean, US is flying its own flag now. It's in terms of military and definitely special forces. Their special forces is the biggest and best funded and in the world. So even towards the back end of my career, which ended 7 years ago, you saw this thing where we just don't have the funding and the access that the Americans do. So by that as a proxy, it's like the Americans are the tier one SF unit in the world. Now, soldier to soldier and bloke for bloke, we match that in spades, but we just can't compete with the fact that the US military and the US Special Forces is funded by so much. And it was quite sad to see that, towards the back end of even my career, was a lot of the stuff that we were doing out in Iraq, we were kind of piggybacking on the back of them just because they're just this huge beast of an organization, and we just don't have the funding or manpower to match that in any way. But yeah, you put there's subtle differences between a US operator and a UK operator. I think in the UK we train a lot more in kind of, we diversify our training a lot more. So whether it's still the same or not, we train as like a medic or an explosives expert. We train in like surveillance and reconnaissance and a plethora of different skill sets, whereas I do believe, whether it's changed or not, that the Americans are more focused just on shooting and kind of CQB tactics. And if a medic's needed for an operation, then they'll bring a SF medic in for that role, which has its positives and negatives. Like they can focus heavily on being a shooter, being an operator, the job at hand. But I guess, having the multiple skill sets that a British Special Forces soldier has means that, a small team of British SF soldiers could deploy to a country and pretty much manage their team, that we wouldn't need any kind of outside skill sets or influences to be able to achieve whatever it is that we're trying to achieve.
Where did the ambition come from to, go from that to aspire to do the SF stuff? Like, what was it, did you have that in your childhood of like wanting to just constantly better yourself?
Yeah, I think from a young age, I'd always wanted to get better and be fitter, and I'm quite competitive, so I'd always want to be faster or stronger than someone else. Like even when I joined the military, there was not a part of me that wanted to join as like a medic or someone who drives vehicles or I don't know, postie or whatever other jobs and roles there were in the military. Like I either wanted to be in the Royal Marines or the Paras. Like I wanted to be in the pinnacle of what the British military offered. And like, if I'm being honest, I have no idea where that comes from. You know, if you want to get deeper on it, it's probably an insecurity that I felt being at school and probably not feeling like I was fit or strong, and almost an internal need to want to prove myself in something. And then the progression to Special Forces was, I think at the time, 2008, I was in Afghanistan, and I didn't know much about the SAS or the Special Forces. All you kind of hear is these like fairy tale stories that generally people that have failed selection have come back to the unit and, you know, have told you these like stories that may or may not be true about the regiment. So you don't really know anything about it. Like, we never had recruitment briefs back then. You know, the only thing I'd heard of was the Iranian embassy siege, but even that, I didn't have a grasp of it. But yeah, I remember being in a snatch vehicle in Afghanistan, and I was driving my platoon sergeant around Danjavi at the time. Excellent man. And we were just chatting and almost chatting about what happens when we get back from being in Afghanistan. And Dan just kept saying to me, you know, go on selection. He just kept saying it to me, go on selection. And I was probably 23 at this time. And if I'm being honest, I didn't think that I would be able to go on selection and pass. Like, I thought that I was probably in for too little a time to, you know, I felt like I had to do more time, prove myself more, get more experience, and then go on selection. And Dan just kept saying, like, you know, in his thick Scottish accent, "Jay, get on selection." And just kept saying it to me. And, you know, I'd like to thank Dan, because, like, I think if, you know, I wasn't Dan's driver in that 2008 tour, you know, there's probably a part of me that could have, you know, all it would have taken was one person, like a, you know, a platoon sergeant that didn't believe in me as much as he did, to turn around and say, yeah, mate, maybe you should wait another year. And like, my life would have been completely different. So to have him believe in me and to say, you know, you're capable of going on selection. So I think at 23 years old, we're still massively figuring ourselves out. And even after, you know, one Iraq tour, two pretty heavy Afghan tours, I still didn't feel like I was good enough to serve in the Special Forces. And there was 9 of us that went on selection in 2009 from 3-para. And we'd done a kind of pre-build-up training package. So we all kind of knew each other. And out of that 9 people, I was the only person to pass selection and get in. So...
Damn. I mean, so what's the selection process like?
I mean, it's the hardest selection process in the whole world for any Special Forces unit. And actually, it's you know, our Special Forces selection is the one that all the Special Forces around the world base themselves off. So even the US system, they'd base themselves off our Special Forces selection. But yeah, it's hard. It's broken into 6 phases. It lasts 6 months. Hills, jungle, surveillance and reconnaissance, escape and evasion, counter-terrorism, and then you go off and do parachute training. But it's hard, man. It's like, it's not designed to be easy.
Physically, what was the worst part of the test? Like,
jungle. By a million miles, the jungle's the hardest. Like, you kind of, you're more worried about the hills phase because it's the first phase. And then you get that done, and that's hard enough. You know, I remember getting to the end of the hills phase, and the final test is a march called Endurance, which is 60 kilometers over the Brecon Beacons. You get 20 hours. And the kit, the weight of the kit's around 70 pounds with water, food. and I'd actually injured my foot. I'd ripped a load of muscles in the top of my foot, so I couldn't lift my foot up at the time. So I was like dragging my foot around the whole of this endurance march, to the point that I got halfway around and I bumped into one of the 3 para lads on there. I won't say his name because he's still in. But I was like, let's just say his name's Dave. I was like, Dave, I think I'm going to pull myself off. I was like, I literally can't drag my foot around anymore. It's like I'm in so much pain. And he actually said to me, he was an older guy. He just went, mate, don't. He's like, just keep going. And again, I think, I don't know if that would have happened. Maybe I might have pulled myself off. I don't know. But yeah, I managed to drag myself around, and you finish endurance and, you know, my feet were like balloons. Like, you know, you've done endurance stuff yourself. It's like, I couldn't see my ankle bones. My mum actually thought that I'd broken my ankle. She took me to the hospital to get an x-ray. But you know, you think that's hard, and then you get out to the jungle and it's a whole different kettle of fish. You know, the weight increases. So the rucksack, I mean, you've probably got 30 to 40 kilograms, which again doesn't sound much, right? But you wear that all day.
No, that's tough, yeah.
Yeah. Because you've got all your water in there, because you don't know when the next water resup's going to be. You've got all your food. You carry all your specialist kit. You've got live ammunition with your weapon system. So it's heavy. It's like super heavy. But not only that, is you're trying to navigate yourself through the jungle, and you've got 100% humidity. It's 35 degrees every day. It pisses down with rain. You're soaking wet. You know, you've got cam cream crawling into your eyeballs every second of the day. You know, there's no break. You know, it's 100% tactical as soon as you go into the jungle to as soon as you leave. So if you want to go for a piss, you've got to do it with your buddy. He's got to provide protection, you know, all around defense whilst you have a piss, and then vice versa. There's like no switch off. So it's tough, you know, trying to navigate over the ridge lines with a huge rucksack on your back for 4 weeks is pretty tough. And, you know, it's a testament to the attrition rate of, you know, starting selection with 150 to 200 people. And by the hills phase, you've probably lost 100 of those people. You might start the jungle with 50 people. You might start it with 30 people. And then you get to the jungle and you've got anything from 10 people to 20 people are, you know, solid soldiers that, you know, are pretty much going to pass Special Forces selection unless they make a huge mess up.
The jungle section, you've got to navigate around the jungle. Is there anything else, like, could you get caught slipping and then you'd get a fail for that, or?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people take themselves off. So the majority of people will just VW. Or like you get to the end and you get a stand-up fail where you've got to the end of the jungle, you survived it, but you're not good enough to get in the Special Forces. But there isn't like a specific thing that you could be caught doing. I mean, look, if you do anything severe, then you're not going to make it. But by that point, you know, you've got a pretty solid set of soldiers. Some people come off again with medically discharged. So whether that's injury or like on my selection, I think we probably lost about 6 people to heat stroke. Yeah. So like, yeah, like you kind of by attrition itself, you're just left with this solid bunch of people at the end.
Do you remember mentally, like, through that process, what the toughest thing was?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, you put a lot of pressure on yourself, right, to perform. So I've never struggled so much in the physical and mental aspect of soldiering. Like, I've always found it, I don't know, you accept the fact that the jungle's going to be difficult. Like there's no illusion that the jungle's not going to be difficult. So for that 6 weeks, you work hard and you give 100% every day. And it's like, if you can get to the end of the day and, sit in your hammock and you're happy with the fact that you've given everything that you can do for performance wise that day, like there's nothing else you can do. So it's as simple as that. So I think the worst thing that people do when they come on selection is get in their own heads. And whether that's, they think they're on for a fail, or they think that one of the instructors doesn't like them, or they think about home too much. You think about the comforts of spooning your girlfriend back at home or seeing your kids. These things eat away at you when you're out in somewhere like the jungle. So for me, I knew that I just had to work hard for 6 weeks, and I knew that I had to show up every day and just give 100%. And, the advice that I give people that are going on selection now, especially for the jungle, I've just had a friend go on who unfortunately came off, but I just said, mate, be that person who just always works, like regardless of who's looking at you, regardless of who's around, do it when no one's around, do it when no one's watching. If you're picking litter up in the camp area, pick litter up. It's like, that's like the traits that you want as a special forces soldier. You don't want someone who just performs when everyone's watching. It's like you want that person that performs when no one's watching. And if you do that, like by default, you're going to perform when someone's going to be watching you, and you're going to perform. But also by default, that's the person that you're going to end up being, is someone that just performs and does it because that's their job role and not because someone's watching, or they feel that that's what they've got to do. And just work hard, man. It's like you got 6 weeks. Just think. Do you know what I mean? It's like 6 weeks isn't a long time. If you're going down a range, like look around, try and find targets, try and find locations where you can break contact, try and find locations that would be good for cover. So if you pull back to a location, that right on the right behind that tree, it's a great spot for cover. Like, what you're getting yourself into. So prep for it. Like, make sure that you've got, that you're doing everything right, so that, you've best got your chances for success.
I love that mentality of doing it when no one's watching as well. I think applicable to everything in life. Like I think so many people, especially it probably comes from when we're kids, like we're trying to impress their dad or the coach or whatever it is. But like when they're not there, like what are you doing? Like how are you training? I think it's so important.
I think that's what we miss out in life, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We've got this culture now with like social media, and it's like you see the success of people, and it's like you see the success of what they've built, but you don't see the days where they're just bored stiff of just repetition and just showing up every day, right? Spending hours on their laptop, or, all the sacrifices that they made where they've missed birthdays, or they've not gone out with the boys, or they've missed holidays, or whatever it is, like everything for that one moment of success. And we're so like, we all want that success to just happen overnight, or happen on an Instagram post, or whatever it is. But you think of climbing a big mountain, right? You think of standing on the summit of Everest. It takes 8 weeks. 8 weeks for that 15 minutes that you get for that Instagram picture if you stood on the top of that summit. But no one sees the pain and the physical and mental pain and the sacrifice that someone puts in to stand on that summit.
100%. I think with social media, we're so invested in the final process. I think most successful people define themselves by the things they've had to do to get there. Whereas someone looking outward to these people who are successful, we define them by standing on top of the mountain, holding the trophy, getting the badge, whatever it is. So we invest in that idea. And yeah, I think, the special forces guys, like you have people investing in what your end result is, not the process. And I think if you want to be successful in something, the idea of the process is the thing you should be able to fall in love with as well, not just the finished product, the finished article.
Yeah, I'd add to that and say that I'd imagine most successful people don't sit there and think of themselves as successful.
Yeah.
Because they're so absorbed in what they're doing. They're so absorbed in the process of turning up every day and the things that got them to where you perceive them as successful, that they're not going, wow, I'm successful. Like, I made it. Do you know what I mean? They're just, right, tomorrow's Tuesday. Let's go.
Yeah, 100%. The passing process then, what's that like for in with the British SAS? Like, do you have like a ceremony at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's nothing kind of special about it. It's you literally get brought into the chief instructor's office, and he literally says pass or fail, sits you down, tells you how you did in probably about 5 minutes, and then you go down to the clock tower, which is on Hereford Camp, and you get issued your stable belt and your beret, and you get a big picture, and that's pretty much it.
What was that moment like for you?
Severely hungover. We'd all gone out the night before. But no, I mean, look, it's a proud moment, but I think like all these moments, right? It's, you have a moment where you've kind of gone through the transition of going from a soldier to a special forces soldier on selection. So by the time that you get to that badging day, you're almost just ticking off a day that's ceremonial, that solidifies the day that you get your beret and belt. But the whole process has built you up to being a special forces soldier anyway. So the day is almost just like a tick in the box. But, you know, there was a moment where, so the next day, everyone kind of disappears. The lads that go to the SBS, they go to their camp. And the lads that go to the SAS, they go to their respective squadrons. And you get your first kit issue. And the kit in the Special Forces is like 10 times better than any of the Green Army kit. And it's quite funny. Like I was 24 years old, and the instructors, the DS on selection, all used to wear these tropical, we call them jungle trousers and jungle kit. And there was a certain type of jungle kit that only Special Forces soldiers got issued. This was before everyone wears Crye Precision now. And you'd see the instructors wear it, and obviously you want to be like the instructors. So when I first got issued my jungle kit, I got back to my room and I put it on and just looked at myself in the mirror. And I think that for me was my moment of like, yeah, you've kind of done it. Like, take a pat on the back.
Pretty cool, yeah. Pretty cool to have that moment to yourself though as well. Yeah. What was you go through that, your ego is probably riding a little high, you've just passed selection. What was it like getting into the room surrounded by other guys who have done the same thing,
Yeah, it's quite a shock. You do, your ego flies up on selection. You're surrounded by a load of guys. You go through this thing, selection together. You all kind of think towards the back end of it that you're SF soldiers. And the next day you turn up and go to meet your troop. And like I said, I was quite young. I was 24, so my troop was all kind of 30 plus. And it's like it's a bit humbling. It's a bit of a culture shock, because you've kind of broke free of this safety net of the lads on selection. And although it was only 6 months back when you're 24 feels like a long time. Then now you kind of surrounded by these like big dudes. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's some pretty experienced SF soldiers in the troop when I turned up, and yeah, it's humbling. It is humbling, and you soon realise that you're not an SF soldier. You've just got a belt and a beret, and you've passed a course that took 6 months, and you soon realise that what you do from this point is everything, like all the experience, all the operations, all the training. That's what makes you a Special Forces soldier, not selection. Like selection just selects you as a candidate that could potentially serve in the special forces. To train to be a special forces soldier, you actually have to be in the special forces for a considerable amount of time. And that's quite humbling in itself. So being surrounded by the troop, being surrounded by such a wealth of experience, and I came from 3-para. I'd argue to say that my company, A company, was the best company in parachute regiment. We showed, we proved ourselves in Afghanistan twice, one in 2006 and then the same in 2008, and we were outstanding, surrounded by some super switched on, amazing soldiers. Then you get to the special forces, and it's like that on another level, and it just breeds professionalism, and it breeds standards. And you feel that when you get there, like the way that people walk around or carry themselves, or even being sat in a set of orders for an operation or a job. There's a huge level up of professionalism that you feel being in the special forces.
Was there I don't know what you call it, like hazing period? Like, did they, the more experienced guys, because you're the new guy, like, did they? Yeah. Yeah, of course, yeah. You're the new guy. You're the new guy anytime you turn up to anywhere. But, it goes back to that mentality of the guy that's always working and always picking he picks up the litter around the camp and makes sure that it's all good when no one's around. And it's that, if you want to be a good new bloke, you're always kind of the new bloke. It is that mentality. Simple things, right? You're the guy who goes and picks the sandwiches up, or the packed lunches up when you go on the ranges. You carry, there's little jobs, you have to go down to the armory and pick everyone's weapon up or something like that, or but it's all part of like bedding in, and it's all part of proving yourself in the squadron until the next new bloke turns up and he can take over all those roles that you've been doing. Just a quick interruption for the video, guys. As many of you know, we are independent creators and filmmakers, but there is a massive attack on us right now. Traditional media over the last few years has started to slowly die. They are no longer the independent voice that you first thought they were. That's why we've created Mulligan Brothers Patreon. We've built something special for our most dedicated supporters, and I want to break it down for you real quick. The supporter tier gets you ad-free early access to both video and audio versions of Mulligan Brothers interviews 24 hours before it goes public. The executive tier gets you everything that a supporter tier gets, plus more. Exclusive interviews and behind the scenes content, walk and talks, daily routines, unreleased interviews, the stuff that you don't see anywhere else. And finally, the executive producer tier. Everything from the supporter tier and the executive tier, plus exclusive perks. Access to our treatment packages. Be the first to see which guests are coming up and get insight into the topics we'll be discussing before anyone else. And you'll even get an executive producer credit on every single documentary that we make. So if you've ever wanted to support the Mulligan Brothers mission of inspiring change so we can go around the world and get these stories that nobody else will, this is exactly how you do it. Go to patreon.com/Mulligan Brothers, or click the link in the description, or scan the QR code on screen. Join the community and help us inspire change. Let's dive back into the video. What was the difference in like your first deployment? Like, did you notice a stark difference with like the sort of stuff you was working on?
Yeah, for sure. Like the whole way that it's run is completely different. We'd gone from, Afghan in the paras was more you're going out and showing presence in an area, and part of that is you go out and show presence, whether that's, if you're in a new area, if you're trying to almost, I'm trying to think of the word. You're basically just trying to put a footprint on that ground, or you might be tasked to kind of clear an area and swoop through an area and kind of flush out any enemy or something like that. Or you could be doing an attack on something. But, it's big numbers, limited support, mainly daytime operations, because Back then, our night vision capabilities wasn't great. And then, yeah, special forces, highly intelligence led, deliberate, direct, mass amount of support. So things in the sky, different, in, out, on to the next one. Way more professional. And yeah, like just a completely different way of doing operations.
At that point, you've had career progression. Like, when did you start to think, well, how do I progress here? Because you're in like the elite force at that point. Like, was there that, like, I need to be better? Did you develop like obsession with like trying to be a better operator? Like, how does it work from that point on?
I think you're surrounded by it. Like, the culture just brings you up as a soldier. So, like, everyone's trying to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go down to the range, everyone's trying to get better at shooting. You go on a course, everyone's trying to do good on that course. When I joined, went straight out and did my med course, and it's like, you wanted to be a good medic because you knew that at some stage, I'm going to have a casualty that potentially could be my mate. So I want to learn and get as much experience as a medic as possible, because one of my mates, or I might know his wife or his kids, his life might depend on it. So like, definitely the culture inside is this culture of just people wanting to be a better soldier and wanting to be more professional. And it's definitely a growth orientated, community. Whereas like in 3-para, albeit it was still a more growth orientated community than, say, the rest of the army. If lads aren't doing anything, they'll just sit on their pit and play PlayStation. Whereas, lads want to do stuff in the special forces. Like, if there's a spare day, like we want to go and shoot, that obviously has its limits. You can only push a soldier too much. You can only do so much, and then someone burns out. And you see that a lot. Like, it's a fast-paced life. It's a lot of travel, a lot of time away from home. But yeah, it's interesting. Towards the back end of my career, we were doing this UK prep, and I remember there's a moment we're in a lift shaft in a building somewhere in the UK, and we had to wait till midnight to get access to this lift shaft to do some kind of climbing and access stuff. And we'd been like working pretty hard, like, throughout the week, and you get to, I think it was a Friday, and it's midnight in London in this lift shaft. And I just looked at the rest of the guys, and like, we all had bags under our eyes. We're all like pasty and pale. And I just looked at these two guys that were like showing us around the area and showing us this lift shaft that worked there. They just looked like fresh faced, no bags under their eyes. They were like older than us. So it does take its toll.
What was home life like when you would return? Like, was you present at all? Was you still obsessed with what you would do, like your training and that kind of thing? Could you switch it back off?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you drive out of camp, and I kept a pretty strong civilian life outside of the military. Like, my friends were all civilians. They all did, civilian jobs. So, yeah, I've always found personally that to be able to separate military and operations and training and being a special forces soldier from Jay, who's just a mate and goes for a beer with his mates in the pub. I've just always been able to like keep the two very, very separate. So yeah, there've been moments post operations where I've had like struggles, but only one that I can ever think of, really. The rest of the time I've been pretty good with being able to separate that. So home life's always been good. Like, good relationship with my mum and dad. I think it's hard to have a relationship whilst you're serving in the special forces. And if you do, I don't think it's a proper relationship. You know, going away for 6 months overseas, and you know, you're away all week and you see him at the weekend, and then you go away for 2 or 3 weeks, come back for a weekend, and every time you see him at the weekend, it's like, you know, it's like honeymoon again. It's like, whoa, 2 days together, and then you disappear again for 3 weeks, come back. So trying to hold a relationship down in SF is pretty difficult.
What's the success of the relationship, the like family friend relationships? Like what did you put it down to? Because I know a lot of people struggle with the adjustment of, especially in the SF guys, like the work just creeping into their everyday life, starting to sort of consume most of their thoughts and stuff.
I think you get a lot of people that become way too obsessed with their work. And look, a lot of military guys come from nothing, right? We're predominantly council estate kids that probably didn't fit in at school, probably didn't have purpose or belonging, and we found it in the military. So when you put all that weight of your life into one thing, when that thing goes, you're going to struggle. So I don't know whether it was by default or just the way that I was hardwired, that I just really kept hold of my civilian life. Just, you know, not deliberately, just I just did. I had good mates, and like always wanted to finish work and kind of leave work as it was and go back and see my mates. But for sure, you see, you know, I know a lot of guys that have got out and struggled and found themselves in countries that are under conflict at the minute, wanting to be in a position on the front line. And, you know, I don't want that for myself. You know, I enjoy my life where I live, and I enjoy the things that I do now. And I'm quite happy to kind of leave the war fighting to the younger generation of people that are coming up.
It's interesting you say that about the council estate kids, like that loss of identity. Like, yeah, trying to chase that is, yeah, I think that's a big part of it, like making sure they hold on to that identity of, especially when you've reached such heights as well, like to lose that.
Yeah, we were nobodies, right? Yeah. We were nobodies, and now you're in the top 1% of the military. Mm-hmm. It's like if you don't self-analyze or check that, you know, that becomes you. That becomes your identity. That becomes your life. And like I said before, you know, the moment that goes, which it will, and sometimes it will go before you know it, could go through injury, could go through being medically discharged, it could go through, you know, mental health issues like that. Like if you put everything in that one thing, like you're essentially nothing when you leave.
Yeah, we did an interview with a guy called Eddie Penny. He's a SEAL, and he's had like a really bad adjustment period, was like on alcohol, had a lot of suicidal thoughts, and he put it all down to the fact that he couldn't adjust to the idea that he wasn't a special forces guy anymore. Like that once he stripped that away, he was like, who am I? And it's interesting the way you speak about keeping your friendships and stuff. It's almost like you say, you separate the Jay that works and the, you know, the one that's at home, and like you can have that life still. Whereas I think like a lot of guys just completely got rid of that and like were so invested in what they were doing that when it was gone, there was nothing at home. You know, they'd not really created anything at home. You say that you had there was one adjustment time that was difficult. Like, have you spoke about that before? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever spoken. I've spoken about it on podcasts and media and stuff. It's not a thing, like a secret or anything. Yeah, there was I think it was my first tour, the back end of that first 6-month tour. I was on a task force that was a small team working in Afghanistan. And yeah, we were just going after targets most nights and days. We had a small group of Afghan fighters that we'd mentor and train. And yeah, it was just busy. It was just super busy. Out most nights, out most days. Still trying to fit in some training for the Afghan strike force. And probably pretty burnt burnt down, back end of the tour. As you can imagine, we were going out on the ground and doing what Special Forces soldiers do. I won't go into details, but it's pretty heavy. And we came back in off the ground. In fact, our handover, the handover should have been us driving the squadron that was coming in to take over from us. Should have been us showing them the training area, the facilities, introducing them to key people that we'd within the network there. And it was just spent going out on the ground. And I came back in off the ground and I got told that I'm going to fly home early, but like 1 or 2 days early, and bypass the decompression phase that we used to do. So I literally came back, handed my weapons in, all my ammunition, dekitted, jumped on a helicopter that night, flew back to Camp Bastion. Off the back of the helicopter, checked in, flew home, and I was, from coming in off the ground, 24 hours later, I was on the train heading back up north to see a girlfriend that I was seeing at the time. And I just don't remember, I just remember not feeling right. I can't describe what the feeling was, but like a numb sensation, or like I don't know, I just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I could operate in this home environment, which actually brings like an anxiety or a panic inside you, because you don't feel like you, the person that should be in this environment, if that makes sense. And yeah, I got off the train, and you instantly just feel weird inside, which makes you then act weird. And that ended up in quite a few rows because I didn't know what was going on with me inside. And then I was 26 or something like that, 27. And I thought the only answer to it was to drink, because if I drank, it would make me feel like a drunk person, right? I'd be happy and like laughing and stuff like that. And I wouldn't feel this weird like heaviness that I was carrying around. And for some reason, like I felt myself, like my body, like the heaviness, that I started to feel lighter as the days got on. And we were arguing quite a lot, like, 'cause I was obviously drinking, and then whatever it was that was going on inside of me, it was like when I was drunk, it was like that was coming out, not in violence, just in probably me being hard work or whatever it was. And I didn't talk about it. I didn't know where to talk about it, or who to go to, or who to speak to. I kind of had to just deal with it myself. And probably about 2 weeks into that, I started to feel myself in this area. I started to feel like I was the person that could fit into this environment again. And it kind of just lifted. Like there was nothing that carried on or followed me, or there was no flashbacks, or like I wasn't having sleepless nights. It was just this weird sensation that I got for a couple of weeks post-ops. But yeah, I just never kind of revisited it or anything like that. It just lifted and I felt okay. But I'd say, I think about it, or I did think about it, and you've probably gone from this extreme environment where, highly sympathetically dominant, probably very overworked, very stressed, emotionally shut down. And in a flick of a switch, you're now in an environment that you shouldn't be feeling all those things. Like your body is supposed to be on a train feeling relaxed and emotionally open, and you're not. You feel this like numb heaviness. And that in turn sparks that panic of just like, what's wrong with me?
I remember last time actually you spoke about, we were talking about PTSD, and you'd mentioned about
PTSD.
And like post-traumatic growth. Did you have that when you'd when you decided to retire, like, was you able to carry that through, or was there like a lull, or like a low moment where you was like, I'm not this guy, or that's not me anymore?
Yeah, like it's weird, right? I think I left in 2018, and I'd finished with the squadron, and I got posted into London to do an easier job and to be located to where my girlfriend was living in London. And it was almost like a wind down period. It was like, the regiment were really good to me. The recruitment officer at the time was just like, what do you need? We'll give it you. If you need space away from Hereford, take it. Think about your decision, and we'll get you out whenever you need to leave. So yeah, I went down to London, and I probably did that job for 6 months and then left. And I did this thing called early release. So it took me 6 weeks to go from being a soldier to being a civilian. And at the time, I drove out the camp when I'd kind of gone through the final processes of leaving. I drove out the camp and I kind of felt this weight lift off my shoulders. And then there was this weird moment where I found myself in this flat in London. And at the time, I'd gone to work for a local clothing brand called Through Dark. And it was really early on in the process. So there wasn't really much for me to do. And I found myself in this flat in London on like a Wednesday day, just kind of like staring out the window thinking, is this what my life is now? Like I'd gone from being around all these dudes, the geezers, like I'd been surrounded by everyone, and you don't have to worry about friendship or someone to speak to, or being lonely, or money, or like having a doctor's or a dentist or food. Like everything's literally taken care of. And there's this vulnerable moment in this flat in London where I'm just like, I don't have any of that anymore. And I've been pretty fortunate since leaving to just have these experiences that and opportunities that have kind of pushed me in a way that I'm just really grateful that I've gone. Racing cars or being on SAS Who Dares Wins, and having opportunities to like guide and lead expeditions on big mountains, and life's like taken this, or it's shown me like these things that I really love doing, and I've kind of took the initiative and turned that into my career and my life. But I've been out 7 years now, and there's been some moments where I think there's a moment where you first leave where you still think you're a special forces soldier, and it's whether it's an ego thing or what. But there's this thing that it's hard to like shake off for a while. It's hard to explain. But you go into like a meeting or you're meeting new people, and it's like, I think I'm still this special forces soldier. And then, there's a period kind of in between that 7 year period of leaving that was quite difficult for me. And it was less, military focused and more just what was going on in my life at the time. There's probably a period where I felt pretty lost in terms of my direction and what I was doing. And, I think when you do a TV show that was as popular as SAS Who Dares Wins, and then you don't do any TV after it, you instantly get this hit of dopamine whilst you're doing the show of everyone knowing who you are, and, wanting to be a friend and liking your Instagram stories. And then, that all dies off. And again, right, if you're not careful, you can put all your self-worth in the person that you thought you were when you did the TV show. Which I kind of luckily nipped in the bud pretty early, because as all that interest started to die off, I was like, right, that's not you. Like, that is nothing to do with you. It was a part of like your life and your journey. You're this guy now. And like, this guy has to take charge of what he's doing and figure out what it is that he wants to do for the rest of his life, or at least for this next period. And then there was this weird moment where, and it's been more recently, it's been like in the last probably 12 months, where I don't feel like that special forces soldier anymore. I feel like just a regular dude. Like, I feel like all my mates are not military. They're all civilians. And I just feel like a regular guy in like a regular life. It's quite nice. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, we could talk about your military career, I think, for at length, but your life outside of it's been just as well. It's been more varied, but just as successful, and I think worth talking about. Like when you say racing, like people might get a idea of what that's like, but like this was like proper. How did you get into that? Like where does that
God knows, man.
Was there no influence as a kid, like racing, like karts or anything like that, to get into that?
Nothing.
No.
You do some like advanced driving and mobility stuff whilst you're in the military, but it scratches the surface on anything that you learn when you're racing cars. It was a random conversation in a park in the UK with my manager at the time, an ex-client of hers who just started working for a car company called Praga. And it was during lockdown, so we met in this park, and we'd taken like a can of beer up. So we had a can of beer in this park, and it was like daytime. It was random. And he just turned around to me, and he's talking about this new supercar that they're launching. They ended up calling it the Behemoth. Amazing car. And he just turned around and he's like, "Do you want to race cars?" So I was like, "Yeah, of course." Who the hell doesn't? And yeah, at that stage, you're like, right, this is never going to happen. I've seen the car. The car looks insane. It's like an entry level Le Mans car, and it's called the Praga R1. And next minute, I'm on like a testing day in Donington, and it was the non-turboed version. I remember I spun it twice on the track and like stuck it in the gravel. But yeah, next minute I find myself racing this, car that doesn't weigh over 1,000 kilograms, and it's got 367 brake horsepower, no ABS, no traction control, full aero suite on it. So the faster you drive it, the more grip it's got. And I had zero racing experience.
As you say, you finish those first few laps, they get back and say what? Like, get out of the car, or they're like, no, you look like you might have it.
Yeah,
have what it takes.
It was more of that. It was
what?
Like,
That's
you're doing
wild.
well, yeah, you're doing. And yeah, the whole point was that you had this guest driver program, where there was a small group of us that were kind of public profile people. Some of them were like car YouTubers or gamers, and quite an eclectic bunch of people. And then you'd have a pro driver. So in each car, you'd have a pro driver and an amateur driver. And the job of the pro driver is obviously to drive the car fast to win the race. But as part of the race, like half of the race needs to be driven by the AM driver. So you kind of got to work as a pair. So luckily my pro driver was Ben Collins, who used to be the Stig, who's phenomenally fast. Good dude. But yeah, I think probably the first season, I mean, I could get around a race and I could race, but I wasn't anywhere near like the kind of, I was nowhere near the pro drivers in terms of time, but even the AM drivers, I was kind of slacking a little bit because they'd had quite a lot of experience racing and doing other stuff. But in fact, no, I was kind of up there with the AM drivers, but I just had some wild experiences. Like my first race was at Snetterton. It was in the wet. I was driving with this kid called Angus Fender, who was never raced the Praga, incredibly fast. And he handed it over to me for like the last half of the race, and it's pissing down with rain. Never, like, driving on slicks is like one thing. Driving in the wet with a car that has no traction control or ABS is, in a race car as well, is like a completely different experience. And it was like my first race. And Angus had managed to get this massive lead ahead of everyone else, and he passes the car over to me, and I was like, I go out and I'm like leading the race. It's a timed race, so it's an hour, so it's not done on laps. And I must have been on the second to last lap, and I come around this top corner, it goes just before it goes on the main straight, and I skid off and go out onto the grass, and all this mud's flying up on the front of the visor. And I managed to get back onto the track. I keep the car going. I get back onto the track, and I floor it down the back straight. And I can't see anything through the front windscreen. So the windscreen wiper comes on, and I've got a hole about that big in the front windscreen. And I'm literally trying to drive it as fast as I can whilst looking out this tiny hole. And I come all the way around, and I don't know what time it is. So I don't know if it's the last lap, the second to the last lap, or I've got 5 laps ahead of me, but I can't see anything. So I'm going quite slow. So I smash it into the pits, and I'm like, guys, clean the windscreen. They're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, clean the windscreen. They threw a load of water on it. And I pulled out, and I think I ended up losing all my positions because I'd pulled it into the pits. But if I'd have stayed out, I'd have probably won the race.
This is what's interesting about this, is like, to take it complete left field. So then you do the mountain adventure stuff. Like, where did that start?
So that started in when I joined the SAS. I went into mountain troop, and again, climbing with Chris. Chris Thapper taught me how to climb. And then, you know, you end up training to a high standard whilst you're in a mountain troop as just an ordinary soldier. We go away, we train in the Alps. We train overseas, like Canada and in the Alps whilst you're in. We do like a lot of urban climbing, so being able to like climb buildings and skyscrapers and set up systems and that kind of stuff. And then whilst I was in, I went over to Germany and lived in the Alps for 2 years and trained to be a mountain guide with the German military. So when I came back from that, there was a guy who'd left the military. He'd been pretty badly injured in an incident in Afghanistan years ago, but he'd been pretty successful in business, and he wanted to climb Everest. So myself, and it was Chris at the time actually, we set up a training program for him to go from someone who'd never climbed an 8,000er to or someone who'd never climbed, never even put a harness on, to be able to climb an 8,000er. And that led to climbing Manaslu, or trying to climb Manaslu, which is the 8th highest, I think, I think the 8th highest. And we took him out to Lake District. We took him out to Chamonix in the Alps. We did a load of training. We actually flew out to Nepal and climbed 2 peaks. One was 5,000 meters, the other was 6,500 meters. And then we went out to try and climb Manaslu. And myself and Chris had took skis. We were trying to do a ski descent of it. And like, to climb an 8,000 meter mountain, you need 8 weeks, there or thereabouts. And we gave ourselves 3 weeks to climb Manaslu, which instantly put us on the back foot. Like, none of us were acclimatized. We actually missed the hike to base camp out and just flew straight to base camp in a heli. And then we couldn't do the acclimatization window, so we just went straight for a summit push. And I think at the time, there was a part of me that was, you know, as a special forces soldier, like, things that are physically hard, I can do. And I didn't realize that altitude has a completely different story for you. And, you know, the guy that we took up was pretty severely, you know, had severe altitude sickness and probably borderline cerebral edema, pulmonary edema. at a point that we should have taken him down when we were at kind of camp 1, camp 2. But we got stuck in a snowstorm in camp 2 and had to stay in the tents there. And all our tents were up in camp 3. And luckily we knew some of the German guys there. So we'd jumped in the tent with these German guys. So there was a 2-man tent with 3 people in it. And for some reason I'd not packed enough food, so I ran out of food. And the snow cleared. It was pretty fucking miserable. Like, you've got a pounding headache. You can't really sleep. No one can really sleep. So you're all just shuffling for 2 days straight. And then the snow cleared and we began to climb. And we were all pretty, like, none of us were in a condition to climb an 8,000er. And you could see from all this new snow that there was a lot of like moving. There was a lot of like slabby avalanches that were happening around us. And you just see all these indicators that it was going to get pretty dangerous the further up we went. And we actually dug a snow block, and a massive slide happened. And I grabbed the chap at the time and just like said, "Mate, we're off," and turned around with him. And we went back down, and we were all right. We survived, but I think going back to that, I always say that sometimes the hardest thing to do is turn around, or know when to turn around, and actually to do it, it's braver than pushing on and risking people's lives.
No, I completely agree. I think my biggest concern with climbing is ego. And like, I think especially like when you like do ultra running or marathon run, whatever it is, like ego is really beneficial. I think if it's a 1-day event, it can be really beneficial to be able to push you through. And then, but it can kill you on a mountain. Of
course,
right?
Yeah.
What's the feeling of, how do you describe, like, once you're up at like past 7,000 and up in 8,000 meters, like when people say like every single step feels like effort, like, is there a way of articulating it to somebody who's never experienced that before?
Yeah, I mean, like, so when you set off from Camp 4 on Everest and you climb into the summit, just imagine you're walking up a steep hill, and you might walk up a steep hill that's 200 meters, and you might get out of breath. You might start sweating. If you're walking up a steep hill at 200 meters at 8,000 meters, even on oxygen, you're probably doing about 5 steps, and then you adopt the position where your elbow goes on your knee and you punch yourself over and just start panting like you're out of breath already. So really the difference is that, you're doing like 5 to 10 steps, sometimes 3 steps, the further up you get. So your body just can't move as fast as it can. It can't generate heat as well as it can when you're at ground level. You obviously can't digest food. Your body's almost shutting down. So
how far is Camp 4 to the summit?
800, or just short of 900 meters.
How long did it usually take?
You leave Camp 4 at 8 p.m. and then you get to the summit at about 7 a.m. So 10 hours, 12 hours.
Yeah. Was there like a moment for you? Like, in my head, the idea of standing on the top of planet Earth and being like the highest human at that point, like, I feel like there must be like some kind of was there a moment for you, or was it just like, okay, done?
Weirdly, the first time that I summited, 2017, we got up to Camp 4 and there was this huge storm that had ripped through Camp 4, and it had actually like ripped one of our tents apart. Like, the winds were that strong, so we'd all crashed in this other tent. There was 5 of us, and this big group of Indians had turned up, and they decided to turn around because the weather was so bad. You could kind of hear the rumours and the hustle and bustle of Camp 4. People were deciding not to climb that evening. And there's this moment where we're all sat in the tent, and Mingma turned around to me and just said, like, "Jay, what do we do?" And I've gone, "Let's go. Let's try and climb. And if the weather's too bad, then we can always turn around and come back down and wait 24 hours and try again the next day." So we went, and as a result of the weather being so bad, the weather cleared. It was like you couldn't have got a more primo day to climb. And because of that, there was no one on the route. So when we left, the Sherpa that was going to come up with me turned around and went back to Camp 4 because he was sick. So we had one Sherpa, Mingma, who stayed with the guy that I was climbing with. And I just like went up on my own. I felt great that day. Like I felt like I had loads of energy. You know, I wasn't doing this 3 steps and then hunch over and be out of breath. I was like pumping. It was like I was at the top of Penny Fan or something. And I just felt great. And I was like, I climbed past about 3 to 5 people. And I finally got up to, the summit, or just short of the summit. And like, there was no one on the route. I was literally climbing it on my own. And there's a Korean couple of climbers on the summit, and they're getting their picture with a flag. And I was like, right, this is my opportunity. Like, I'm not going to get another chance to get a picture because I'm on my own. So I like rushed up to them. I was like, guys, can you take a picture? I've got this picture of me with, at the time, the squadron flag. And these guys get off the summit, and I'm stood on the summit on my own. Like, literally no one around, no one else, just me. And it's that for me is like such a, I don't even think special is like a word that you can describe it. It's like a crazy moment in life where I'm this only dude on Mount Everest and literally the highest man in the world in that moment. And I just remember thinking, right, how do I make the most of this moment? How do I absorb it all? And I just kept saying to myself, there is no way. Like, the more you think of how you can make the most of it, the more it just takes you away from being on the summit of Everest.
How long did you get up there?
I felt like I was up there for probably about 20 minutes. And then I came back down, picked up the guy I was climbing with, and then we both went up together and like got a picture and stuff like that. And then actually, the funny story, the picture that the Korean guys took was blurry. It was out of focus.
Have you watched Walter Mitty, the film?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. There's a Sean Penn's in it, and he's like taking a photo of the white leopard, like the white tiger or whatever it is, the white leopard. And he doesn't take the photo, and he says, sometimes I just like to be in a moment. That's kind of like you didn't even get the photo, unfortunately, but at least you got the moment.
I think there's something so nice about that, right? And I think we're so focused on getting our phones out and taking pictures of moments. You know, you only have to watch like any concert, any, you know, Coldplay or whatever, and it's always that the song that resonates with everyone, the last song or whatever it is. And I've been there myself, right? I've been in music concerts or wherever it is where I pull my phone out and I found myself just taking a video of everyone taking a video.
Literally, yeah.
And it's like, I mean, it's sad, but it's reality at the same time. But there's something quite nice about going and doing something and no one else knowing what you've done.
Yeah. And I went to a Coldplay concert recently, and I was doing the same thing. I caught myself doing it. And I don't even post pictures like that on my Instagram anyway. Like, I don't know who I'm taking them for. Like, and everyone's doing it, and you kind of look around and no one's enjoying the moment, or not, you know, people do enjoy the moment, but, you know, it seems to be like a culture thing. But Everest, doing that on Everest, it's quite, I don't know what the word is, but it's quite nice that the photo was blurry in some ways, I guess. Like,
I agree, man. I agree with you completely.
You see that, you know, you got the moment.
Yeah, imagine if I actually pulled my phone out and I started to like record a video and my battery went dead instantly. But like, I always think, imagine if it didn't, I would have spent that 20 minutes trying to get pictures of me in different angles and locations and those pictures would have been amazing. But I wouldn't have had this moment where I stood on the top of the world for 20 minutes, figuring out how I make the most of standing on the top of the world for 20 minutes.
I mean, it's pretty bonkers.
I think the more that social media kind of sucks away time in your life, the more that you've got to go and do things that are completely off social media.
Yeah, 100%. What was your experience like climbing Everest and seeing, like, I think one of the biggest experiences near the top is like there's a lot of people who have died doing it. Like, did that concern you? Or I know obviously you'd had a career where you'd seen death before, but like, when you're climbing? Like, is that something that you'd worried about? It's something you just, or do you have to accept that that's just part and parcel of if you want to go try do this?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably seen quite a few like bodies before in my career that it wasn't really an issue, to be fair. Like you see it and it's just part and parcel of being on Everest. And
What's the chat you have with clients when you're walking clients up there? Like, do you have that conversation with people?
yeah, you've generally chatted about it. It comes up in conversation. It's less like, right, you're going to go up, there's going to be bodies. It's more just like you'll talk about it, and like I'll talk about my experiences climbing previously and some of the bodies that I've seen up there, and almost just like, this is what I've seen when I've climbed, and some of that might be there, some of that might not be there. Just focus on what you're doing and climb past it almost. But yeah, it's pretty common. Like I think the second time I went up in 2019, just as you left Camp 4, actually, there was a deceased climber. In fact, both years, it might be the same climber, I'm not sure, but in 2017, the guy was sat up. So he's like sat upright, and it was pitch black, and you're going up on a head torch. And like I said, there wasn't that many people on the route. It's just me and like Mingma and John behind me. And as I'm coming up, I've literally just caught something in the corner of my eye, because I'm like, you know what it's like doing something like that. You're focusing on like the floor ahead of you, and you just catch a glimpse of like a summit suit. And like when you see someone who's dead, regardless of how many clothes they've got on, you instantly know that they're dead and not there's a thing inside them, right? Life's gone, and you can sense that as a human being. I've just like looked and just instantly looked up, and there's this like summit suit just sat upright. But that was probably the first one that I'd seen on Everest. But you kind of see him coming down. Like the Sherpas will do a really good job of bringing deceased climbers down.
A lot of the time, is it the ones that are there, it's difficult to get them down the position they're in or wherever they're...
Yeah, I mean, past Camp 4, past 8,000 meters, it's a lot harder to bring bodies down just because of the sheer weight. But I think the way they do it is they'll usually wait till the end of the season when they're kind of collapsing the higher camps, and I believe that insurance pay out if you bring the body back. So like the Sherpas will put a team together, and they'll go and kind of recover most of the bodies. But I think there's one just at the top of the Hillary step, and it's fallen down this section, and he's kind of still on the rope looking up. But obviously he's either something's happened to him that's led to him fall. So he's either died before he's fallen, or he's maybe had a heart attack or something. Or he's fallen and maybe banged his head or something, but he's been unable to get back up. And
again, like when you're talking to clients, like what are the biggest like risks that you're like trying to mitigate when you're taking people up there?
I mean, you obviously start that way beyond being on the summit, with a proper robust acclimatization process. You're managing that client from the moment that you meet them to the moment that they disappear out of your sight. So everything that they do, the process, the processes that they go through, and reaching base camp and the acclimatization phase, you're just trying to manage them the best way that you can. So even if the person turns up to Kathmandu and just wants to get wasted 24/7, it's like you kind of, not that I've ever had that, but you would have to have a quiet word with them and just say, look, stop drinking. But even the walk in and the acclimatization, you're just trying to make sure that they do it as slow as possible so that they can conserve as much energy as possible. And every client's different, right? Some are quite independent and really experienced, and some kind of need a lot of assistance and help. So just trying to manage that, and just, trying to do it as safe as possible, and ensure that they feel comfortable and that they've got the confidence to be able to do it, and that you've given them that confidence. And that's the job of you, is ultimately like managing their safety and their success, but almost empowering them to make them believe that they belong there and that they can do it. And then summit day, you just all head down and go for the summit. By that time, it's like, that's game day, all the prep's been done. You're literally just keeping an eye on them and making sure that they're taking some food and fuel and water, and they've got sun cream on in the morning when the sun comes up, and their sunglasses are on, and they're not cold. But yeah, it's everything that goes into that process that leads into them being on the summit, and not just about one specific day.
What are you looking out for? Let's say we get to Camp 4, and do you know the sort of the things to look for of like, okay, you're not summiting today, like we're going back down, like is the key indicators like early signs of like somebody's just not ready for the day?
Yeah, I mean, generally if someone gets up to Camp 4, they're going for it. You'll see a lot of those early indicators way earlier on than summit day. And even if someone's really struggling, if they've got up to Camp 4, they're on supplementary oxygen, they'll generally make it to the summit unless there's bad weather or kind of external circumstances that lead to them not doing. So, you've built up a long relationship with that client already, so you kind of get them. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've heard like what's come out their mouth. You've seen them, whether it's them pulling excuses out or maybe it's an injury or something like that. You've built a good relationship with them up to this time. Even, at Camp 2 on Everest, it's like trying to force food down clients' throats. It's like the hardest thing ever. They'll literally just come out and stare at their food. And you're just like, look, I have to show them. It's like, eat your first plate as fast as possible and then get a second plate. And you literally have to chew the food and swallow it with water. But like, food's fuel. Your body doesn't want to eat. Therefore, you think that you don't need the food, but ultimately that's the thing that's going to get you to the summit. Yeah, it's just a constant thing of just observing them, but also make them feel like they're not being observed. Do you know what I mean? It's like they need to feel like they're climbing the mountain on their own.
What's the stuff like? Obviously, the summit's like this moment, but like, what else is rewarding about it? Like, do you get a good view going up? Like, is the camping aspect of it nice? Like all these, what the things that people don't speak about. Like, does anything else exist? Because in my head, I'm like imagining you got this blizzard of snow, you get to a camp, you go back out, you sleep, you go back out, you go to the next one, and then eventually you get to the top and you get to see a nice view. But like, is the adventure in between quite?
Yeah, it's wild. It's like some of the craziest scenery you'll ever seen in your whole life, especially big mountains, big 8,000 meter mountains. I mean, any mountains like this incredible landscape and scenery. So yeah, I mean, you've got that. I mean, like if you're talking 8,000 meter mountains, it's probably similar to doing the ultras, right? It's a game of boredom.
Yeah.
Spending 3 weeks on the side of a mountain, sleeping in the same tent, away from internets and coffee shops and mates and phone calls and all that stuff is like, you're basically just trying to figure out what to do with every day. So yeah, it's a little bit of a fight with boredom. But like you're in this place that's like just insanely beautiful. So it's like trying to balance the fact that you're just so bored with where you are and what you're doing, but at the same time, every day you get to wake up and drink a coffee and like, look at this. And then look, summit day on any 8,000 is pretty special. Like, especially Everest. It's like, there's this moment that I notice, right, where the whole time you're at base camp and the whole time that you're doing your acclimatization, you're always looking up at these mountains. So you've got like Nuptse, you've got Lhotse, and you're always like looking up at these mountains from below. And when you stand on the top, it's like the only time that you're looking down at them. And you can see like the tops of them all. And it's the same like climbing any big mountain. Like I was on Amadou Blam last year, and it's the same there. You spend the whole time at base camp looking up at these mountains, and then when you're on the summit, you're like looking down on them, looking down on these huge ridge lines that you've just been looking up at. And it's quite surreal.
This is a random one, but just how do you use a bathroom like once you pass a certain camp?
Mate, I did a talk to a school, a friend's mum's school. That's the first question they asked. You have toilets at base camp, which are, so all the waste has to be taken off the mountain now. So you have like a blue drum barrel, and it's almost like sunken into the ground kind of thing. And they've kind of built a rock toilet, and then you've got like a toilet tent, which is just a tent, probably like a square tent like that big, and it's 6 foot, 7 foot in the height, and yeah, you just open it up, go in, pants down, go to the full squat. That's you.
As you get higher up, like is a
Camp 2's got a squat toilet, and then it used to be like Camp 1, you'd just have like a dugout pit that you just go and poop in. But I think now you've got bags, so you got to go and poop in this bag, but it's like a toilet bag, so there's crystals in it that basically take the odor away from it, and I think it turns your poo into, I don't know, unicorn fucking feathers or something.
So I mean, talking about so the racing, the climbing, you swim, you surf, the bike, you do the bikes. Like, out of everything that you've done, like physically, like what's the hardest thing? Like, looking back, including the career, like in terms of physical feat, like is there something that stands out at you? Like, okay, yeah, that was physically the most difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there's not. They're all pretty difficult, and they all have their own challenges in their own right. Like Everest is probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever do. Selection's pretty hard. I think like some of them just have different experiences. Like, it was a second expedition on Everest that I led, and there was a load of internal politics in base camp, which just made it pretty difficult. Some of the clients were probably shouldn't have been on the mountain, and for an expedition leader, it just makes it a little bit difficult because you've got an opinion on that. You're trying to keep people safe. You're trying to also bring success to the team. So kind of making those decisions are quite hard. And we also had another team that we had to kind of balance and manage, and it just made it quite difficult. And then you kind of have a load of clients that are bringing a lot of like concerns to you, and so you're trying to manage that. Mm-hmm. So I think when we finally stood on the summit with 3 or 4 of the climbers, I think it was 3. For me, that was like meant more to me than even when I stood on the summit on my own, because the difficulty of what base camp was, and there was quite a bit of experience in the team as well. And I just kept saying to them, like, if you stick with me, you'll get to the summit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you do follow me and do what I do, it's like you'll get there. And when you say something like that, you've got to back it up. And the pressure of backing it up on an 8,000 meter mountain when anything could go wrong, sickness, illness, altitude. But yeah, we stood on the summit with three of the guys, and that was a moment. I should have shed a tear for it.
Damn. What's the like, looking now? Like, is there something on the horizon, like your next Everest? Like, have you got something in mind that you want to try and knock off, or do you follow like a bucket list or anything like that?
I think the whole world of like endurance, feats or athleticism it's amazing to see. But, in the last 3 years, 5 years, I think since Russ Cook ran through Africa, it's sparked this crazy trend of people just, Dave, who works on construction sites 9 to 5, all of a sudden like runs the length of the UK, and it's like, it's amazing. Do you know what I mean? I love seeing it. I think what it's done for people and getting outside and inspiration, it's unbelievable. I think for me, I felt like I'd done a lot of that stuff early on, and I don't have a hunger to go and do that kind of stuff or set a record or, do a first ascent of something. For me, I just enjoy doing it all. And personally, for me, every now and then I go and do something hard. Like, I've got a 102k ultra next month. That'll like kick me up my arse, and I think life's easy, right? Like, I've got the easiest life in the world. All my problems are self-inflicted. Work, business, finances, relationships. But the rest of my life, I've got good people around me. I've got money in my bank. I live in an amazing place. My life's easy. Like I get up, I don't have a boss. Like I go for coffee with my mates. I do some work. It's like, but yeah, I don't think that's inherently good for us at the same time. So for me, every now and then, I've just got to go and do something that's difficult, like the ultra, because yeah, it just clicks you back into that rhythm of, I don't know how best to describe it. There's something about doing something that's hard every now and then that just reminds you that, I don't know.
I mean, I completely agree. I've never found a way of explaining it, but I recommend
struggle,
it fully. Yeah.
Like, why did you do you obviously had a different reason to do the gravestone thing.
Yeah, the gravestone was a big part of it, for sure, like 100%. Like, it was attached to doing something difficult for getting through that thing. But like, I think getting to the end of it, I keep saying to people, like, if I could bottle it up, that really helped me mentally. Like, just being out there for however many days and by myself, you know, I mean, a lot of pain for hours and hours and hours, in nature. That's why, like, the mountains really sing to me, because I'm like, oh, that's the kind of thing that I'm trying. Like, I wish I could chase that again. Probably not the right way of doing it, but it definitely, there's something magic there. There's a guy who works for us, actually, who was on the run filming it, and like, I'm trying to get him to do, he wants to do this run. I'm trying to like support him to do it, because I just think it's amazing that he's wanting to do it, and it's attached to something he wants to heal. And the reason I really want him to do it is because I know on the other side of it, that thing that he's trying to heal, I believe he'll be healed. Like, I think, I'm not saying it's not like a magic pill or anything, but there's something bigger to it. There's something bigger I think taking a human body there, for some reason, it does something.
I agree with you. I think, especially like you had emotions to process, and like you had something to comprehend or get over, like questions to be answered and stuff. And I can only speak for men, right? But I think as men, I think as humans, like, our bodies are designed to move constantly. And I think I definitely agree that when you go through something hard, it's like, if you can go outside and put all that, you know, negative emotion and like the processing and like all that grief and everything that you feel into something, like, I think by default of moving the body and like the blood and, you know, going through the brain and the heart and the muscles, it like can shift stuff way quicker than it can if you sit at home.
That's a really good way of putting it. Like, because I've been trying to explain it. So that was a year ago now. We're producing a documentary to try and explain what happened, because when I got to the end of it, I'd say for about 8 or 9 years, I couldn't speak about this. I couldn't, I wasn't able to process it very well. I thought I had, but I really didn't. And I got back to Jacob's grave, and it wasn't like a bad thing. I just didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't feel like a really like overwhelming sadness. And the whole process through training for 6 months, doing the run itself, I was like, when I get there with this gravestone, it's going to be like, I'm going to be in floods of tears and we cry and all this kind of stuff. And I was completely, and I don't say this lightly, I was completely like healed from the grief, like completely. And I come to terms with it. But a lot of people message me like, what do you mean by healed? Like, how, and how? And that's where I'm like, I wish I could bottle it, because if I could give you it, you'd be able to feel the same thing I'd felt. But I think it's simple. It's not easy. Like, it's a difficult thing to do, to go, run 100K or whatever it is. And like you say, pour everything into that. I'm here to process this grief. That's, I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to go through that, or whatever it is for somebody. But I think you're right. And I think, I don't want to boil it down to this, but I do think it's something for men as well. Like, I think you're right. And yeah, I think there's something there. Not to say that women can't process it, like, and I definitely think women do use it to process, but I think men doing something, being physical, hands-on, there's got to be something there, man, for sure. So yeah, that's probably the best I've heard someone articulate it. So yeah, I
think, again, I'm not a woman, but I think women and men process things differently. It's like, why wouldn't they? Do you know what I mean? I think as men, it's like, there's something about there's something about doing something hard, and there's something about doing something hard with other people that that's almost transformative, right? As a man, it's like, if you think of what we've done historically, ancestrally, it's like we'd always go away with other men. We'd fight in battles. We'd hunt. So there's something still ingrained in us, just because we now sit in front of TikTok and stare at funny videos. It's like that's still in us. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that doing something like that, it feels natural, right? It feels, I should be out all day, being outside and like building stuff or like making stuff, but I'm not. Like, I sit in front of a laptop, so I have to go and do something hard. And then I was thinking about something else. It's like, when you do those things, right, and you put like the talk that I did at the weekend, talking on a stage in front of an audience isn't something that naturally comes to me. It's like, I find it hard. It's like, I'm nervous. Like the moments leading up to it and the day leading up to it, I like disappear from all my friends. I don't want to speak to anyone. I like go in on myself. It's like, it's hard. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it was Saturday. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I literally put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Only spoke to a couple of people, but I didn't want to engage in a load of conversation. I'd see a mate and he'd be like, "You look nervous." I'm like, "What do you expect, mate?" I think people think that, I don't know, because they see a certain side of you on maybe social media or you're at Special Forces or something, that something like that would just come natural to you. And but I'll tell you what, right? I remember just before I walked out on that stage, and I could hear almost my heart going boom, 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 boom. And you go out on stage, and you compose yourself, and you deliver what you need to deliver in the best way that you could possibly do, in the most genuine way as you as a human being. You try and convey stories that could inspire people and potentially change people's lives. And as soon as it's over, that feeling, like, that's why you do it. It's like ecstasy. It's like this huge drop of adrenaline and positive emotion. And it's like, wow, like that's done. Happy with the performance. And it's the same as doing an ultra. When it's done and the next day is the next day and you can eat whatever food you want to eat, you're like, I'm proud of myself for doing that.
Yeah.
It was something hard. It was something that I could quite easily have gone, I don't want to do this. Like, this is too emotionally hard and mentally hard for me to go through. But you don't, you go through with it. And you teach your body every time you do that you're capable of doing something like that. And I was chatting to my mate, the one that we kind of, he introed me in the talk, and actually he did the Q&A at the end. And he rang me that day. I was actually having a nap. And he's like, how you feeling, mate? And I was like, should we just go and Bournemouth Airport and just get a flight to Mallorca? And he just started laughing. He's like, mate, I'm shitting myself. I was like, yeah, me too. And I was chatting to him before we went out. I was like, look, we've got this. I go like really calm just before I step out on stage. Like, I panic throughout the whole day. And then like 15 minutes out, I just like baseline and just go like a robot. I just said, mate, we've got this. I was like, because we're going to do some more shows next year. I was like, let me just tell you this though. I was like, it doesn't get any easier. Like, you don't all of a sudden do 10 shows, 15 shows and not get this as much. It's like, you still get this reaction, but you just know that you can do it. You just know that you can go through it and deliver. That's all you teach yourself.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. And you're right about the aftermath. I think that is the nicest like feeling ever. And that's where I'm like, I try and say to people, is like, you don't have anything to lose. And afterwards, nobody can take that away from you. Like, you know, if you achieve something, whether it's stepping out on stage, running 100K, whatever it is, you've done it. And even if you don't have the Instagram picture or the social media post or, you know, a big finish line of people cheering you on, you've got the thing, you know, you did it and you hold that, you know, forever. And yeah, nobody can take that away from you. I think that's the best feeling, knowing that you've done it, especially because you're the only person who knows how difficult it was, like, and what you was overcoming.
And it's not the moment, right?
Yeah, it's not
doing it.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
everything that you put in. It's all the negative emotion. It's all the doubts that you have. It's everything that you have leading up to that moment. Like doing hard things brings you resilience. It gives you confidence and growth.
100%. And I think the biggest thing is taking the leap of faith. Like you've just got to be willing to take the leap of faith. I think you're right. First time, it doesn't get easier, but you have maybe more faith in yourself that you will get through it onto the other side. What's the next stages for you, like, at the moment? Like you said that you're doing some expeditions and stuff. Like what's the work you do at the moment?
Yeah, so we launched concept expeditions at the start of this year, and ultimately it was just, you know, my whole experience being in the special forces. Like, you work as a team. Also part of that team is looking after people in, you know, some of the most dangerous environments in the world. So taking that experience and applying it to expeditions and guiding and travel. And then my time guiding on kind of the big mountains and guiding on mountains and expeditions around the world. So ultimately to put it all into concept expeditions and have it as my own company. But ultimately what we're doing now is kind of big kind of bespoke adventure travel itineraries. I do one-on-one guiding for kind of one-on-one clients all over the world. And we've got a small number of group trips. So group mountain expeditions, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Scotland, and there's some others on the website. So really, like, my passion right now is I love pushing, like, myself in terms of risk and adventure. And really when I'm on my own or with, like, friends that I know are capable, like, I love to push that envelope of risk and figure out how, like, what I can actually do. But, like, my big passion is trying to bring people into that, and almost show people adventure and show people like what they're capable of, and whether that's through an expedition or the one-on-one stuff. Like, I really get a kick from, you know, delivering success and safety to someone, and, you know, through the expedition stuff. The best thing that I found from it was seeing someone's face on a summit that never thought they could get up, and seeing that person progress over, you know, 3 or 4 years climbing different peaks. And you know, the end result is this person that's climbed this amazing peak somewhere and, like, developed as a person, and their growth and their experiences. And so, yeah, really to put all that into concept expeditions over the next 5 to 10 years and see where we can take it.
So obviously you have the like set expeditions, but, like, does somebody come with you with an idea, or do you go with that? Like, how's that work?
Yeah, so we've obviously got, like, a small roster of group trips, which are itineraries that I've made. I'm currently like working one-on-one with a number of clients. So kind of, yeah, some people will come and they'll say, you know, Jay, I want to go to these 3 or 4 locations. Can you put something together over the next, you know, 20 days? So yeah, we put together an itinerary for them and then deliver that itinerary. The majority of the work, I'll be on that trip. So there'll be elements of it that require me, for example, whether it's from a medical or an evac standpoint, or whether that's on a guiding standpoint. There's other kind of corporate ones where there's organizations that want to put, like, a challenge on, or I'm trying to think of real world examples that don't kind of bring clients into it, because it's all kind of under NDA. But yeah, ultimately, like, you know, if you have an idea and a dream, we facilitate it.